here to stay or bent on returning home. This he continued. In fact, most immigrants live in families with a blend of legal statuses, opportunities, and dreams. To spend time with this Queen's family is to see up close how the growing disparities within immigrant homes are pulling their numbers in opposite directions and complicating efforts to plan a common future. I chose to read that whole section because I think it speaks directly to the theme of this lecture. And he took what I'm suggesting to, he did exactly what I'm suggesting to you guys, which is to get right down to the granular level of life lived by immigrants. So if I'm to offer the journalists among you some advice, to dig deep. Hang out in immigrant restaurants and bars, attend events, organized by and for immigrants, talk to everyone, meet immigration lawyers, meet advocates, go to immigration court. And also don't forget to talk to law enforcement officials, both those charged with enforcing immigration laws and those charged with general law enforcement. All these stories, these ideas, these themes point to the resourcefulness, drive, determination, opportunism, hunger, estrangement, loss, redemption, and sadness of the very people who are at the center of this immigration debate. One of those people is a Bhutanese guy named T.P. Mishra. He and his sisters were part of that story I wrote a couple of years ago about the population of Bhutanese refugees that had begun to form in the Bronx. They had been resettled from refugee camps in Nepal. T.P. and I stayed in touch after that story came out, and the family was having a really hard time adjusting to life in New York. The city was big and crowded and expensive. The family hardly spoke any English. Jobs were hard to come by, and they were broke. I hadn't heard from him for a while, and some months later he popped up on GChat. Now, I'm never activated on GChat, and for some reason I was that afternoon, and there he was. And he announced that he had relocated to Raleigh, North Carolina with his two younger sisters. They had relatives in Charlotte, and they had heard through the refugee grapevine that life was a little easier in North Carolina. I had to be in North Carolina for something else a few weeks later, so I agreed to drop by and hang out with them. And I wrote a story following that interview about how more than half of that small community that was living in that gritty walk-up apartment building in the Bronx had made a secondary migration someplace else in the United States. When I met him, he told me that there was a good chance that they were going to move yet again to Charlotte to be closer to their extended family. We fell back out of touch, but then as I was working on this lecture over the weekend and found myself again on GChat, strangely, T.P. Mishra popped up. In Anchorage, he said, Alaska these days, and I wrote exclamation marks all over the place, and I thought to myself, oh man, the guy's moved again? I mean, this guy's restless. But it turned out that he was just visiting his eldest sister, who had resettled there with her family. And since I'd last seen him, things were going really well for him and his sisters, his other sisters in Charlotte. He was working at a refugee resettlement agency. He had been accepted as an undergraduate at UNC Charlotte. His sisters and wife were working as quality control agents at a food processing company. They were learning English and learning how to drive. He said 2011 has become a turning point to new opportunities, and especially after I moved to Charlotte. I have never regret a single day. Things are getting okay these days, and am very excited that my hard work back in NYC has helped me a lot. He told me that his goal was to get a degree in international relations and criminal justice, and eventually to work for the United Nations and the FBI. And he also admitted that he wasn't done moving. He said he wasn't through with New York City. The first time, he admitted the city was too much for him and his family. But he was convinced he would be back. He said, I might make New York City my last and final destination. That's my last aim, exclamation marks. Last aim here means working there. One guy, one story, yet there are as many such narratives as there are immigrants in this country, each moving forward, pushing and searching, conniving in an effort to make it through the day and achieve these goals, to achieve their goals. For me, this is the essence of what we're talking about when we're talking about immigration. So thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Yes, on this. So, questions? If you could just state your name and your affiliations, your organization. We've got people from all over.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Pedro. I'm a journalism major here in RIT, and I want to talk to you about my perspective. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and as you may know, there's a border with Haiti. Right? I mean, it's almost like a bit like a business. It's profit making. It's a complete fraud, and every day Haitians move to the Dominican Republic, not necessarily to work, but to you see them on the streets. They are poor, they do not talk Spanish, and they just molest people and ask for money for drivers and for walking people. So how does that reality affect your writing and your thinking, and how do you feel about knowing that the United States is not the only country in the world that is affected by this problem?
I think, to me, that means, following on my lecture, that there are great journalism and writing opportunities, and I'm speaking to journalists here in the audience, and the rest of you forgive me for focusing my lecture on journalism. But the principles that I bring to bear on my reporting, the approach that I take to my reporting very locally, I think can be applied everywhere. No, the United States doesn't have a monopoly on immigration. I mean, there are tremendous. There's a high percentage of the world population that's constantly in motion, compelled by the same set of things, the drives, the impetuses that move them out of a place toward another place. Talking specifically, I've never reported in the Dominican Republic. I have been in the Dominican Republic. I reported in Haiti after the second overthrow of Aristide. And that's a very troubled border. I don't think your characterization of the Haitian immigrant population in the Dominican Republic is accurate. I think that's part of the diaspora. But when I was there, I came in contact with dozens and dozens of Haitians who were employed and were working. They were at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. And a lot of the crap jobs were flowing to the Haitians because nobody else wanted to take them. But they were employed, and they were the people who were checking me into hotels, and they were cleaning my hotel room, and they were driving the public transportation, and they were feeding me at restaurants. I think the picture is far more complex, not just in New York, and not just in Haiti, in the Dominican Republic, but everywhere.
Okay, I'm Tiana. I'm a journalism and political science major. And I was just wondering, because you're obviously so passionate about immigration, how do you cover these stories? Like, do you struggle with wanting to do more for these people, and how do you deal with that?
That's a good question. My humanity might compel me to want to do more, and whether it's giving them money or contributing to an organization that can support them. But I have to recognize that my first responsibility is to my newspaper, and ultimately to the readership. And in an ethics class that I attended earlier before this lecture, we talked about the notions of transparency and independence. If I have to be careful about how far I take my sympathy, and I think my most effective way of addressing issues, if I'm sympathetic toward those issues, is to write about them fairly and deeply and meaningfully, so that I can then pass along, publicize an issue that others can respond to. I mean, I think that's the greatest impact that I can have. Does that answer your question?
Oh, hi. My name is Olivia, and I'm a journalism major here too. And my question is kind of like Tiana's. I was wondering, do you ever feel like when you get so close to these immigrants, do you ever feel like you're characterizing them in a way that more reflects your own personal views rather than just saying, like, talking about them? Like, are you ever worried that you're getting too close with them, you being the journalist writing about them, and not staying independent from the people you're writing about?
No. And maybe because I'm very conscious of that. But I feel like the closer I can get to something, the better I can get to know it. And the better I can see it for everything that it is and everything that it represents. I mean, from a distance, something might look one way, and you get closer to it, and suddenly you see it in a different light, you see it in its detail, and you can see the good and the bad. You know, I feel like that is to my benefit. And then in the end, I'm trying to render, as I mentioned earlier, that subject in all its complexity. What limits me from getting closer at times is time, and you know, maybe it could be possibly the support of the paper, like that you spend enough time on that, so you tell the story that you're able to tell, and providing the qualifiers. That I was only able to tell it from this distance, but I don't think there's any disadvantage to getting really close. Now, if your sympathies are affecting your vision of things, and you're starting to question your own ability to evaluate something fairly and non-judgmentally, then I think you're entering into a danger zone that you have to be conscious of.
Hi, my name is Michael Ho. I'm a journalism major here at RIT. This is going to sound kind of obvious, but how did you become involved in immigration? Like, were you grandparent or parent immigrants themselves? I mean,
So how did I become an immigration journalist?
how did you become involved?
How did I become involved?
Yeah, like why did you choose? Why did you choose the subject?
So why would I choose to cover immigration?
Yeah.
It,
Is it? I'm sorry, but is it personal reason? Like
right. Is it related to my past?
Yeah.
Well, yes. In a tangential way. I mean, yes, I'm the descendant of immigrants. Like anybody who's a citizen of this country. I'm quite divorced from that chapter in my family's life because it was several generations ago. But I have a personal interest in immigration and how people move around the world and how they combine and separate and that sort of shifting, roiling, shifting, roiling sort of cauldron of humankind, that is this kind of giant experiment called planet Earth, and I find it totally fascinating. I think that part of my decision